friends, and welcome back to the Liz Moody Podcast. Today's episode is one of your most requested topics: how to stop spending so much time on our dang phones. I was talking to a friend about this recently, and she was like, I just find myself picking it up for no reason all day long, and I've tried all the little tips and tricks, and nothing works. And let me first say, I get it. I have tried so many different ways to reduce my screen time, and none of them have made a huge difference, except for the 4 that I'm going to share today, which I haven't heard other people talking about. So hopefully this will be new for you and actually help you finally move the needle. So let's just dive right in. I learned this first trick from Cassie Holm. She is a UCLA professor. She's a former podcast guest. She wrote a book called Happier Hour that goes into how to think about our time differently to increase our happiness. And one of the things that she has her students do is calculate how many more times they will get a particular experience in their lifetime. This story literally brought me to tears, so be prepared, but it is one that will honestly change your life. She had a student do the math on how many more times he would get to walk his dog, a dog that he loves. And he did the math based on his dog's expected lifespan and how often they normally walked together. And he realized that the time he had left with his dog seemed like a lot, but in the long run was not even close to what he imagined. So knowing this, he wanted to make these walks more special for him and for his dog. So he started taking his walk to a beach near his house. It was a little bit less convenient, but the dog loved it, and the guy really loved having this special time with his dog. And then, a few months later, his dog got diagnosed with cancer. And a few months after that, the dog died. And this guy, he was so grateful that he did the math, because the time that he thought was so short, it ended up being even shorter than that. He literally reconfigured his priorities to match his values, and he spent that time with his dog that he will cherish for the rest of his life. And I'm sure he made his dog's life, that life that he had remaining, even more enjoyable. My dad's favorite movie growing up was called The Sheltering Sky, and there's this line in it that he would quote to us all of the time. Because we don't know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. Yet everything happens only a certain amount of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood? Some afternoon that's so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it. Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20. And yet it all seems limitless. These are really similar ideas. Our brain doesn't grapple with these numbers unless we force it to. Doing the math gives our brain the information that it needs to begin to match our values to how we are actually living day to day. Until we do the math, it all seems limitless, and we act accordingly in ways that are hurting us. Okay, so you're like, Liz, this is beautiful. This is philosophical, but I clicked on an episode about screen time. Well, go into your phone and pull up your average daily screen time. It is usually under your settings. It is very easy to find. Because we're all friends here, and there's nothing that I love more than to embarrass myself in the name of helping you, I will share mine. I am at an average of 4 hours and 41 minutes a day. And I'm going to be honest, that is not even the highest that I have ever been. I tell myself, yeah, but you work on your phone. And sure, I do. But I do not do 4 hours and 41 minutes of work on my phone a day. Okay, so let's do the math. And I'm sure this is going to freak me out and make me contemplate my life choices, but that is the point, right? Given that the average female lives to 81 years in the United States, and I am 38, I have 43 years left of my life. And if my phone usage stays the same, I will spend 8 of those years staring at my screen. 8 years of my precious 43 years left on this planet, watching other people live their life versus living my own life. And you can also just do this math on an annual basis. You can take your screen time and you can multiply that by 365. So 4 hours and 41 minutes is 281 minutes. And then that times 365 is 102,565 minutes, which divided by 60 is 1,709 hours, which divided by 24 is 71. 71 days a year that I'm spending on my phone. That is horrifying to me. And we actually only have an average of 5,840 waking hours a year. So 243 days of time that is not sleeping. And I am spending 71 of them, 71 out of 243 on my phone. When I actually do the math on my screen time, it makes me viscerally not want to touch my phone. Especially when I'm like scrolling away a Saturday, and then I do the math on the flip side. The times that I get to go for a walk with my sister, they seem limitless, but they're not. The times that I get to lie in the park on a sunny day reading, the amount of summers that I have left. I say this not to scare you because I also think this is what makes life so beautiful. Our time here is finite, and that finiteness is what makes it so precious. And zooming out and being aware of that finiteness helps us right-size our values and our priorities and how we spend our day-to-day. So my challenge to you, should you choose to accept it right now, is first, check your screen time. I know it's scary, but just go in there and check it right now. And then do some math. How much of your year are you spending on your screen? So that's just figuring out your screen time in minutes, and then you're going to multiply that by 365, and then you're going to divide that by 60 if you want to get to hours again, and then you're going to divide that by 24 if you want to get to days. You can pause this and rewind all of that to get the math there. So we have 243 days a year of waking time, like time we are awake, active, able to experience life, that we are not sleeping, 243 days a year. How many of those days are you spending on your phone? Zoom out to the end of your life. What will make you feel satisfied about the way that you spent your time? I literally will think about this, especially if I'm in a scroll hole and I can't make myself get up and take a walk or call a friend or just do something that I know I want to do in that moment. And I picture my 80-year-old self, and I picture her wishing so much that she had more time. And I picture myself wasting 10 of those precious, finite hours scrolling. And it really does motivate me to get outside or call somebody that I love or do something else to make that woman happy. And then, if you want to make it even more poignant, do the math on some of the other things that you love in your life. How long do you truly have with your kids under your roof, or your parents alive, or before you have kids, or with your pet? The thing is, and I am just going to be blunt with you here, we are already making choices about how we spend every moment, whether they are conscious choices or not. Bringing that consciousness to it lets us make choices that really align with our true selves, choices that we will feel good about down the line. Okay, hopefully I didn't scare you away. I feel like that was a very Liz Moody start. Like, come on, friends, we're getting into screen time. Haha, existentialism, death. We will go super pragmatic with the next one. Turn your phone off. Even better, let it die. I discovered this trick when my phone, died, and I didn't have a charger. And what I noticed is I kept reaching for my phone and trying to absentmindedly check it, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't turn it on. And the big thing that I want to emphasize here, and I learned this from personal experience, is that turning your phone off is significantly different than putting it on airplane mode, which is what I used to do, and which is what I think that most of us do. It takes 2 seconds to flick off airplane mode. I used to often sleep with my phone beside my bed, and I would put it on airplane mode before I went to sleep. And then inevitably, I would wake up in the morning and I would think, stay off your phone, stay off your phone, stay off your phone, Liz. But it was so easy to just flick that airplane mode off and check my texts, which led to me checking my email, which led to me checking my Instagram. And then all of a sudden, I am in bed reading about the worst things happening in the world, in the literal entire world. And my cortisol levels are through the roof. And I have not even brushed my teeth yet. I've said this before, and I will say it many, many times again, because it is so helpful when you begin to apply this to all of the different parts of your life. The number one rule of habits is to make the habits that you want to have easier and the ones that you don't want to have harder. Behavioral research shows that even tiny obstacles like having to walk across the room or having to turn your phone on reduce habitual behaviors. The harder something is to access, the less often we do it. The effect is disproportionately powerful. We think airplane mode is making being on our phones harder, but it is not. Truly turning your phone off, though, that overrides the muscle memory. Letting it die and not having a charger nearby, even better. Putting it in another room, turned off, dead, that is the dream. Stop relying on your precious, limited willpower. Our phones are designed to override that willpower anyway. Do not give yourself the option. I am going to do a few but Liz's because I know that you are thinking them. But Liz, what if there's an emergency in the middle of the night and my phone is turned off? Okay, so first I would ask, has that literally ever happened? Because it hasn't happened to me. And second, if you're truly worried or you're in a caretaker situation, I know people who have people who really depend and rely on them to answer the phone, get a landline. They are not expensive. They're all I had growing up. When boys called my house, they had to make conversation with my stepmom or my mom or my dad before they got to talk to me. And then I had to have those conversations with those boys or with my friends in the kitchen, which is absolutely bananas. 90s clothes are back in, so let's make 90s technology a thing too. But Liz, my phone is my alarm clock. Get an alarm clock. I love the Hatch one, but there are really, really affordable ones at thrift shops and online too, and it'll look really cute on your bedside table. If you have any other but Liz's, let me know. But I do think, and I say this lovingly, and I say it from personal experience, that a lot of the but Liz's are excuses that we come up with because we are addicted to our phones, because our addiction is telling us that if we are without our phones, something bad will happen. The bad feels amorphous. We can't quite put our finger on what it is, but it is real and it is scary. That's why leaving the house without our phones feels so strange and so scary, even though you're like, well, reasonably, what is actually going to happen here? We are addicted, and we need to not give that addiction carte blanche to take over our lives by giving in to all of the little excuses that our brains are feeding us. Okay, next one. This is what no one tells you about phone addictions and why you feel stuck and can't actually change the habit. You need to look at the other facets of your life that are making you choose your phone over your life itself. This one was huge for me because I would feel so wiped out at the end of every day. I knew I should read a book or meet up with my friends or go for a walk, but I was like, no way, I am too tired for all of that. So I would scroll on my phone. And the solution here isn't to just rip our phones from us, but to follow that thread back and back and back and figure out at a root level, why am I so exhausted in the first place? Why am I so burnt out that I can't prioritize the things that I want to in my life, the things that make me truly feel good? Want to know the real secret to why you are burnt out? And this is backed by science and maybe controversial, but it was a game changer for me. Interestingly, burnout isn't just about doing too much. It's about doing too much of the wrong things. Things that do not light us up, things that deplete us emotionally without replenishing us physically or mentally. The science backs this up. Research shows that people are significantly more likely to feel energized, not exhausted, when they spend time on activities that feel meaningful, even if they are technically work. So even if we are adding stuff into our days, we are not going to feel more depleted if they are things that light us up. So that is a great place to start with this one. I started asking myself, what would make me feel even 10% more alive today? That is it. That is the whole question. And then I do that thing. So again, adding stuff in, if it lights you up, is not going to contribute to burnout. It is going to make you feel more energized. So for me, it's often reading a good book or having a fun conversation with a friend. I've been going on walks in my neighborhood and smelling the jasmine that's blossoming right now, and it's making me so, so happy. Swimming in the ocean makes me feel more alive than anything else, anything that I can think of. So I've tried to prioritize that. Driving with my windows down and singing at the top of my lungs brings me so much joy. I don't know if you've seen these seasonal joy lists that I make. So basically every few months, I write down both the things that I want to build into my life and the things that I want to just notice for that season. So like for summer, the joy list would have go to the park and read, or have a campfire and tell scary stories and make gourmet s'mores. But it would also have, so those are all things that I'm doing, that I'm actively adding in. But it would also have, notice the smell of jasmine blooming, or the way that the sun feels on your skin, or how good it feels to be that special type of exhausted after a long day outside. So I'm adding in things that bring me joy that season, but I'm also priming my brain to notice the things that already exist so I can wire those neural pathways together so they fire together. Joyless are a great way to feel more alive and to balance that burnout, that feeling of exhaustion. Because again, the research shows that we do not necessarily need to just do less, although certainly looking for opportunities to do less is helpful, but to make sure we are making time for those little things that light us up and then really savoring those moments when they happen. Burnout hates joy. So bring joy in, not as a reward for being productive, but as a prerequisite for having energy to be productive in the first place. I have also been trying to create these little pockets of spaciousness in my day, whether it's to walk around the block or read or watch a TV show or just to do nothing. Like literally just sit and space out, which we do so much less than we used to. And research shows is unbelievably good for our brains. Truly, if you cannot meditate, or even if you can, just sit there, like space out, do nothing. Before phones, that's what we did when we were in line at the grocery store or at a stoplight or waiting for the bus or on the toilet. And it is so good for our brains to reclaim that time. There are these little sprinkles of room in my day, of room for my brain to stretch out for a second, to untangle and unwind. And having these really tiny ways all of the time is so helpful for not letting my brain get really tight and really tangled. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, you know? So we're letting that stress trickle out before it becomes a dam that bursts. That was like 17 metaphors, but hopefully we are on the same page here. Okay, last but certainly not least is doing hard things. This is based on the science of dopamine, which we dove deep into in our episode with Dr. Anna Lemke, which I can link in the show notes. Here are some hard scientific facts for you about how dopamine works in our brain. Every time we scroll or we click or we get a new notification, our brain gets this little hit of dopamine, but it's something called cheap dopamine. It is fleeting, it is fast, the hit wears off quickly, and then you need another one. And then we flood our system with these quick, easy hits all day long, and our brain becomes desensitized. We tip into what Dr. Lemke calls a dopamine deficit state, which makes us feel restless, it makes us feel joyless, and importantly, it makes us desperate for more of those quick hits, which is why we end up picking up our phone every minute, even if we don't know why we're picking it up, even if we don't want to. If you're doing that, if you're doing the regular phone pickups where you look down and you're like, wait, how did this get in my hand? That is a good sign that you are in a dopamine deficit state. But another sign that I like to look for is if the rest of life starts to feel just kind of like meh, like you're on vacation or you're watching a great movie or you're with your friends and you're doing these things that really should hit, that should be really enjoyable, but they feel meh. That's the sign of a dopamine deficit state. The good news is that there is a solution. One of my favorite tips from Dr. Lemke is that doing hard things brings your dopamine system back into balance. It essentially tips your dopamine scale, so your cravings to pick up your phone will lessen, and then your dopamine levels will become even more balanced because you won't be on your phone flooding your system with cheap dopamine, so it'll be this incredibly positive cycle. So one thing that I like to do is intentionally build little hard things into my day, and not just in the moments that I want to scroll, but all day long to rewire my baseline. And it is working. I don't feel that same frantic itch for stimulation, and that is because my dopamine system is actually satisfied. And when I say hard things, I don't mean like climbing Mount Everest or running a marathon. I mean small, doable changes. I will just list a few that I have played around with so you can experiment and you can see what hits for you. Taking a cold shower, or you can end your warm shower with just like 30 seconds to a minute of cold. You can hold a plank for 1 minute. You can take a walk without your phone. Like we talked about that cycle, any time that you spend without your phone is going to doubly help your dopamine because the direct effect on your dopamine, that cheap dopamine hit, you're missing out on that. And then it's a hard thing. So that's really good motivation to keep spending those little pockets of time without your phone. You can try sitting in silence for 5 minutes and doing absolutely nothing. This is a lot harder than it sounds like it is. But like I said in my time, my little spacious pockets in my life, those little tiny pockets of just spacing out, doing nothing, they remind me of like when I was a kid on the school bus and just like zoning out and staring out the window. It's been really lovely. I highly recommend just zoning out, doing nothing. You could try cooking a real meal from scratch. That's a hard thing. You could try doing a hard workout. You can read a book that's more challenging. One small note on this, don't only read hard books. I find this puts people off of reading. Reading should be enjoyable, but you can pick up a harder book explicitly for this dopamine reset purpose, especially one that you are interested in the subject of. But don't only read that book. That's like a caveat of mine. I think sometimes we don't read as much because we try to read too hard of books. So read hard books for this dopamine purpose, but have other ones in rotation so you do not avoid reading altogether. You could clean your house for 20 minutes. You guys talk about doing hard things. This one for me, cleaning my house for 20 minutes, that is my Everest, like 100%. And I should probably do that. Zach would like it if I did that more to balance my dopamine. You could practice a new skill like tennis or Spanish. I have been taking tennis lessons, and when I tell you, I can feel parts of my brain booting up and the dust and the cobwebs coming off. It feels so hard, not just physically, but mentally, but in the best way. If you can, try to do just one of these a day and know that that is a vote in the direction of dopamine balance in this incredibly dopamine imbalancing world that we all are living in. Okay, so let's do a little recap. The first trick is to do the math, literally add up how much time you are spending on your phone each year and across the rest of your life. This big picture though, that big picture, the zoomed out perspective will be a huge wake-up call, and it will help your brain start aligning how you spend time with what actually matters to you. The second trick is to turn your phone all the way off, not on airplane mode, not on silent, not face down on the table, but off. It disrupts that autopilot reach, that grab for your phone by just removing the option entirely, which behavioral science shows is way more effective than just trying to have willpower. I just did a 48-hour retreat. Literally, I came back from it today. Zach and I made our own retreat where we just rented an Airbnb and we meditated and we hung out in nature. And I turned my phone completely off at the beginning for the entire 48-hour period. And it was so dreamy. And again, having it fully off made it so much easier to avoid that muscle memory. All right, the next trick 3, is to check in on the energy levels that are contributing to the phone problem. Are you too tired to do the things that you love? Are you burnt out from things that drain you? Research shows that meaning energizes us. So ask, what would make me feel 10% more alive today? And then tip 4 is to intentionally do small, hard things like cold showers or planks or learning a skill or spending time without your phone, which is a hard thing unto itself. These reset your dopamine system so you're not constantly craving the quick hits of scrolling. I would love for you to pick even one of these, the one that resonates the most or the one that feels the most doable, and give it a shot and let me know how it goes. I'm rooting for you. I am rooting for us, and I am proud of you for being intentional about this because our phones are designed to be so addictive that if we do not put in that intentional effort, they are just going to take over all of our time. So I am proud of you for recognizing that and for taking back your life. If you know anyone else who would benefit from this episode, which truly these days is literally everyone, if you know somebody who wouldn't benefit from this episode, tell me who they are so we can all go over and applaud for them and learn how to live from them. But if you know anybody who would benefit, I would so appreciate if you just take a quick second to copy paste a link and text it to them. If you could just do that right now, just copy paste a link, send it to them. It would also be really fun to have an accountability partner for whichever avenue you choose, which trick you choose to try out in your life. And sharing the podcast is truly the best way to support it. It helps more people find these episodes, which helps us keep making high quality, totally free content for you every single week. We are able to keep this show completely free for you because of the brands that we work with. I am so picky. I cannot even tell you how many brand partners that I turn down. I only say yes to brands that I use, that I love, that I believe in. If you want to support the podcast while saving money on amazing products, check out all of our current discount codes at lizmoody.com/codes. And if you want to keep the conversation going, come hang out with me on Instagram. I'm at Liz Moody. I share all of the wellness tricks, little tips that I'm currently experimenting with, the ones that didn't work for me, and just behind the scenes of trying to live a more intentional life in a very unintentional world. I love you. I know your time is valuable, and I'm so grateful that you chose to share it with me today. And I will see you on the next episode of the Liz Moody Podcast. Oh, just one more thing. It's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, a psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional.